Welcome back to more Wizard Kid podcast. Today we're going to be covering the chapters Platform 9 3/4 and The Sorting Hat, wherein Harry first gets introduced to Hogwarts itself and the many customs surrounding it, as well as making his first friends. So yeah,
And I'm not in this one.
Oh, okay. We both have our shit tons of notes as usual.
Indeed.
And let's go.
So I'm actually going to start us off with the list of differences between versions, not the not the ones that I'm considering like unlocalized Britishisms, but there's just kind of a few random ones here, and most of them are kind of unimportant. So first we have Hoover became vacuum. I always forget that you call them Hoovers.
Yeah, that was just a well-known brand of them, I think.
Yeah, I think it's like the Kleenex effect, where it's just like a name that became a thing. For me, when I hear that, I always think of the scene from Home Alone 2, where he's like, Herbert Hoover stayed here once. He's like, the vacuum guy? No, the president. So there was that. Trolley became cart, which I had forgotten about because I'm so used to the movie doing like anything from the trolley. So like I'm used to that, but it's apparently just called a cart in the US version. Rucksack became backpack. Gawped became gawked. I didn't know that was even a thing.
Gawped?
Yeah, GAWP became GAWK.
I think I might have heard that. I don't know.
I
did notice that they said goggled at one point, where I would think that ogled would be the usual word, but...
I didn't notice that one. Here's a good one. Bogey becoming booger. So I knew about this difference, but because it's related, I have to mention this. Am I the only one who thinks it's weird how like there isn't a proper name for that, or at least not one that I know of?
Mucus?
Mucus is only when it's like actually slimy though. Like what do you call it when it's kind of like more firm or hardened?
It's still mucus, it's just dry, isn't it?
I guess it doesn't really seem accurate. Like I'm always like, everything else. This sounds like the childish. It sounds like the childish word for something that should have,
I guess,
a term that it just kind of doesn't. So I'm just like,
let me see.
Nose waste.
Like, bogey or booger, slang for dried nasal mucus.
Okay.
Yeah, the official term is apparently dried nasal mucus.
I'm gonna go with nose waste.
Okay.
So, driver became conductor. Trainers became sneakers. That's pretty normal. Sports lessons became
The
gym.
conductor actually isn't the driver.
In that case, I guess they just changed it for the hell of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say the driver is the one driving. They're also known as the engineer, and the conductor is the one that walks around the train, like just making sure it's all going well.
Yeah, I think you had a note on that. We'll get to that later.
Yeah. It was not an important one, but yeah.
So, sports lessons becomes gym. Puddings becomes desserts. I always thought that one was weird that it's just called pudding, like, in general.
I mean, we have, like, pudding, like a specific thing, but also pudding can refer to desserts.
Right.
They're used kind of interchangeably, I think, at least nowadays.
It's same thing with tea becoming dinner, where it's just sort of like
No, that's more regional. I don't think many people down here in the South... Someone correct me if I'm just have limited experience or something, but people around where I live usually call it dinner. Oh, wait, no. No, people do say tea. They don't say supper, though. That is like a region.
That's a whole thing that we could get into if we get Nicole in one of these, because I know that we've argued plenty of times about the difference between dinner and supper and whether or not lunch exists. But
right, that's like a cross-country thing. Within Britain, it's breakfast, lunch, dinner. Sometimes people call dinner tea, and I think regionally, sometimes people call dinner supper.
All right.
But not in the places that I live.
The reason I brought that one up is because when Neville is talking about like his family for a bit, he mentions like great uncle Algie came over for tea in the British version, but it says dinner in the American, so they felt the need to change that.
Yeah, he probably meant for dinner.
Yeah, and here's my favorite change. So throughout this, they've been doing a lot of mum becomes mom, which is fine. Here they changed Seamus saying ma'am into mom. And that one kind of annoyed me because, like, that's just his accent.
Yeah.
Like, the kid's Irish. Let him say ma'am. Like, I don't know.
I mean, they don't change... Do they not? I can't remember. Do they change mum to mom as well?
They usually do. At least in this book. I think they kind of give up on it, like, later on in the series.
Okay.
They're just like, people...
I mean, in that case, it kind of makes sense, because it's just... He is saying the same word, just pronouncing it differently.
I guess.
I guess it's weird. If they're gonna, like, leave the rest of the accent there, then... I don't remember what else he says with his accent. I do remember, like, when they were describing the characters walking around, and it was like Harry was standing behind a sandy head, boy, I'm like, that's Seamus, isn't it? And it fucking was.
Called that shit.
Yeah, I mean, it was, like, half memory, half guess, but...
But what, it could have been Justin Finch Fletchley.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what his hair color is. So, getting into it here, so... we're gonna start off with just kind of like getting real, I guess. I don't know, because like the chapter begins with Harry saying like, the next month with the Dursleys wasn't fun. They weren't like being as mean to him anymore, but they were basically just acting like he didn't exist and like refusing to be in a room with him. And he's like, it is sort of an improvement, but it was also depressing. And it just kind of made me think about like, I've heard from some people how like just being completely ignored is actually worse than being like outright like having people being hostile towards you, because like
I could imagine that. Yeah,
I'm not sure if I have an opinion on that one.
I don't know. I've not experienced very severe circumstances to the level that Harry did, so I can't really.
Right. Like, I think I went through most of my years in school with just kind of staying away from people, and I was generally okay with that, and so I guess you could say I would prefer that to people being mean to me, but hard to say.
I mean, yeah, I basically did not make friends during college and university, and rarely talked to people, spent most of my breaks just, like, on my phone talking to people on Discord, basically. Or I guess in my first year of college it would have been Skype, but... Same idea.
So Harry is looking through his books, and he names his owl Hedwig after a name he finds in a history of magic. And I'm like, okay, there's got to be some info on this. There just isn't. There is.
I wondered, but
yeah, it's like there's a stupid amount of background info on like later on they open the chocolate frog cards, and like I've looked up all of those and they all do have something. It's like, oh well, these are mentioned in Pottermore, or like in the video games you get like some info on them, or like you at least get a portrait or something. We have no idea who Hedwig the person was. The wiki just says they were probably a German witch, because that's that's all we know.
I think they would pronounce it Hedwig, but
well, then Harry got it wrong. So
yeah, anyway,
yeah, I guess I'm just kind of reading the ones I have here. So yeah, Harry decides on the very last night before he has to leave.
I did think that was a bit sketch. He could have asked like a couple days prior.
He's just like, so I need to be at King's Cross tomorrow. Can you take me? And Vernon's just like, no. And then you just get like fade to credits, like just freaking like early 2010s internet reviewed gag. But
yeah, I imagine somebody would have done something, probably.
I mean, I guess it's they don't want him to be hanging around the house. They do want to get rid of him. So
yeah,
they have a motivation to do so. But it's just like I'm curious if there would have been like what would his backup plan have been if they had said no. But whatever. Kid's 11. He doesn't have to think that far in advance.
True.
We can. I pointed out a thing here where it's like they're watching a quiz show, and I'm just like, I wonder what show it is. I'm like, was Weakest Link a thing in 1991? Oh, it wasn't. Okay, I don't know any other ones from the UK. So
you asked me, I'm like, I don't fucking know.
Yeah,
I wasn't alive or in the country.
So
yeah, Vernon continue, like when he's asked about taking him, he's like, oh, he makes a quip about like, magic carpets all got holes in them, have they? And that stood out to me.
Yeah, he says, like, funny way to get to a wizard school, and I noticed that because in the later books, like, he usually can't even bring himself to say the word wizard. He always is like, your lot, or something like that. It's like, I don't know. I'm not saying it's like an inconsistency. It's just
early installment weirdness.
Yeah. So yeah, the reason they're going to London anyway, and they're just like, yeah, well, might as well drop you off, is because they needed to take Dudley to the hospital to get the tail removed, even though he's now had it for an entire month. Like,
yeah.
I guess they just didn't know what... maybe they were just hoping it would go away on its own, and they didn't want to, like, have anyone see it.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, I never actually made a diagram for you, huh?
Yeah, okay, so this is really stupid because probably, like, nobody else has this problem, but as I'm reading this chapter, I'm trying to just kind of figure out what the layout of King's Cross is, and, like, because, like, the whole idea is there's a barrier between platforms 9 and 10 that leads to the Hogwarts Express, and the fact that it's called 9 3/4 specifically leads me to believe that, like, there's, like, there's probably, like, 3 structures in between it, and it's, like, the third one.
It's just Whimsy.
Okay.
It's just Whimsy.
So, like, but, like, I'm thinking about it, and I'm just like, come to think of it, I don't really know what a train platform even looks like. And, like, I'm having a really hard time picturing, like...
Yeah,
so
I'll do a diagram.
But yeah, I'm just thinking, like, you know, you've got an archway leading to 9 and one leading to 10, but, like, presumably... No? Yeah, because that's the thing, is I'm just trying to figure out, like, how do these lead to different things when the train track is, like, long? And you're not boarding, like, the back of the train. Like, I don't know.
It's okay. I'll show you.
Because it's not like this is just a made-up area. Like, this is a real place. I tried to find pictures of it. It didn't help.
So, I'm almost done with my diagram here.
I will mention I have been on trains a couple times, but it's always from, like, just a random little stop somewhere and not, like, a big station.
Okay, so this is a really shitty diagram, but... The red things are the train tracks. They should probably be wider, but just ignore that.
Okay.
The spaces between on the left and the right, there's like black lines, which are like imagine fences. This is a relatively small train station I'm drawing. So the black and the white, the black lines are just like fences on the edge of the station. Not, you know, there'll be just other things off to the side. You know, not part of the train station. In the white sections in the middle are platforms. Or like, yeah, they're platforms. The blue one would be, the blue things are stairs, and the green things are just sort of like dividers, like walls, and sometimes you might get like little seating areas or like cafes or coffee shops in those little places.
Okay,
So 9 and 10 would be on either side of one of the green like dividers. And then I assume that he's basically just running into one of those dividers. I don't think I've been to King's Cross, but I know that they have a thing there where there's like half of a trolley sticking out of...
They do. Yeah, they have a thing. So when I was looking it up, I found some stuff on this. Like, there's a plaque that says platform 9 3/4, and there's like the trolley halfway through the wall, and it's like a photo spot. Apparently...
it's not actually at the platforms, is it?
Yeah, apparently they built that, like, way out of the way so that it wouldn't, like, actually clog traffic.
That makes sense. Okay.
But
realistically,
also...
though, like, in real life, it would be between, like on an actual divider like that.
Okay. My favorite part about all that, though, was while I was looking this up, I found this, like, article that someone wrote from, like, 2003 that mentioned this, and it was just, like... I'm not sure if this was a thing that already existed beforehand, or if they put it here as, like, to pay tribute to the Harry Potter series, because there's plenty of weird shit like this in Britain anyway. It's like, no, I'm
No.
like, I don't know, but Yeah, I don't know. I was just having a lot of hard time visualizing it, and I guess to stay on this topic, I don't remember if I wrote this down later. I'm also having a really hard time visualizing how this train works, because...
Oh yeah, I figured you just meant the platforms. I don't know what you mean by the train.
So the way that I pictured this is like, there's one door that you go in, like, in the front, and then you have to walk down an aisle, like, all the way to the back to get to the back seats. But that's apparently not the case.
Yeah, no.
So, okay.
Trains have doors on the side. They're spaced out such that between like, you go in and then you can basically turn into like corridors, and the corridor, well, in a modern train, there would just be seats directly there. But in these like old-fashioned steam trains, you would have actual compartments, where the corridor would basically be thinner, and then a section of the inside of the train would be kind of like, separated by walls and a door. I mean, they show it in the movie. Like,
I mean, that's the thing. I've seen the compartments in the movie, but I figured you've got one of those on each side with an aisle in the middle. So where's the door if you have the compartments on both sides already?
Because the compartments don't go like that. Sometimes there isn't a compartment, so there's space for a door.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. It's like I'm reading this chapter and there's all this stuff about like I don't know. They pointed out a few times where it was just like they were piling into this back carriage, and I didn't realize that was a thing. I was
Let me see if I can find the pictures of me at the Hogwarts Express.
Like, when you explain it, it makes perfect sense to me. But I was picturing it more like a school bus type of system where it's just like, there's only one way in and you just have to go all the way back. I don't know.
Because this would be a super long train, I think.
Yeah.
You have to fit hundreds of people on it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, I'm trying to remember if there's a part in the book at all, like not this one, but like later in the series, where they're having to like walk down the aisle like repeatedly looking for an open compartment, and like they're already on the train, it's already moving, and they still don't have a seat.
Well, I mean, that's possible, but it's not like there's only one entrance. You could go in at the middle of the train, and then you just have to go down one end of it, and then if that's full, and go down the other end of it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I feel stupid mentioning all this, but I don't know. I had like a very specific visualization of how this worked, and it didn't match that, and it was throwing me off. So,
okay. I guess that makes sense. I can't find the pictures of me on the Hogwarts Express. I assume they must still be on my mom's phone. Right. That's alright. I'll see if I can get those.
So anyway, my my lack of visualization aside, so yeah, the Dursleys take Harry to the train station, and then they just like, well,
lol, it's not here, bye.
Have fun, shithead, and just they immediately leave, and he's just like, oh well, fuck. Like he has 30 minutes to find this place, and yeah, the idea, basically, I'm just pointing this out because they just kind of ditch him there, and it's like, so if they were actually correct in that the train didn't exist and the whole thing was a scam, I love the idea of them just leaving him here.
Yeah, I don't think they actually would have, though, because they were in London for the whole day, so I figured they would probably go back to check just in a little while.
Yep, maybe. Alright, so... yeah, should we discuss the whimsy nature of like just So yeah.
Yeah, so I mean the fact that like it could have been 9.5, it could have just had a special name. Being 3/4, I don't think has any specific meaning. It's just ridiculous.
Well, I wasn't even referring to that. This is the you well, no, I said, does putting this inconveniently accessed train station in the middle of a Muggle location count as whimsy? Because, probably, as you pointed out, yeah, it's like, Hogwarts is in Scotland. What if you live there and then have to go all the way to London just to go back to Scotland?
It is a little bit ridiculous, yeah. I have no explanation for that. It's been pointed out for a long time as making no sense. The best thing I can think of is, even though it's never described that there are any other stops, I assume there's got to be at least a couple for people who live further away to not have to go to fucking King's Cross, but...
Like, I'm imagining...
Hundreds of wizards would have to be concentrated into this one train station as well, like in normal public muggle train station as well. So I don't fucking know.
Yeah, like I have to imagine that the train ride probably exists just for the sake of like tradition, because like they could very easily have other means of getting there, but they're like, no, you got to ride the train. It's part of the experience. So it's like, we don't care how you get there. You got to get here somehow, and then get on this train, no matter how inconvenient it is. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and call that one whimsy. It's not magical, like, other than the station being hidden. It's just inconvenient.
Yeah.
Like,
no, that counts as whimsy. But yeah, but then we have the first introduction to the Weasleys before we get a little more information about them later.
Yep. So I wrote down here, because people have pointed this out before, because they're dumb. So like, Molly says, what's the platform number? And then Ginny says 9 3/4, and people are like, how does she not know? And then
She's testing Ginny.
Yeah, I figure it's like, a teacher asks a question, and not because they need to know the answer, but they're testing other people. Like,
right? Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that was pretty obvious to me.
A lot of people apparently didn't get that.
Reading comprehension.
I think they're tropical. So, one thing I'm going to be trying to do here as we go through this is actually looking out for notable differences between Fred and George, because it's way too easy to just think of them as the same person. But I've never really tried to distinguish them before, and I'm going to try to do it this time. So I wrote down a few. We have Fred's very first line in the series is just, I'm not Fred, I'm George. So he's just immediately fucking with people. I'm not going to count that one as a difference, but I made note of it anyway because it was funny. The thing that I've heard is that Fred is kind of like the leader of the two usually, which I guess makes sense because he's the one that's always named first. I think he's also like slightly older, like a few minutes. And so anytime when George is kind of like the one coming up with his own quips or anything, I'll probably note that. What I have for these two chapters is that Fred tells Ron that he has to wrestle a troll for the sorting ceremony, whereas George is the one who says to Ginny, we'll send you a Hogwarts toilet seat as a gift, and is the one who teaches Ron the stupid turn this fat rat yellow spell. So basically they're both just kind of trolls, but that was just the stuff I noticed.
At least Ron didn't actually have to fight them then.
Okay, so alright, let me explain this one. So I noted that the wording in the book actually sounds like you're just kind of hitting a teleport to reach this station instead of actually going through a wall. So like in the movie, they just go through the wall. But the way that it's worded here, let me see it. It's... The third brother was walking briskly toward the barrier. He was almost there, and then quite suddenly he wasn't anywhere. That doesn't, like, I feel like if it's he walked through the wall, it would have been worded that way. This sounds like he just hit, like, a teleport tile.
To me, it just sounds like it was very fast, and it was like a blink and you miss it, like, what the fuck? Because Harry doesn't know exactly how it works yet. He's just like, well, he's going towards the thing, and suddenly he's not there. Like, he could have blinked and easily missed him going through the wall.
Maybe.
I figure that also all the other times that it's mentioned that someone goes through it, it's like there were a crowd of people, like, passing in front, and then they were gone.
Right.
So I always figured that they went through the wall. We'll have to keep an eye on that in the future books when it mentions them at the platform again, because...
Right, I am curious, because...
Obviously, next time they fail to do it, but...
Yeah. So, like, Molly's explanation here is, all you have to do is walk straight at the barrier between platforms 9 and 10. Don't stop, don't be scared you'll crash into it, that's very important. She doesn't say, all you have to do is walk through this barrier. She just says you have to walk towards it.
I suppose.
Weird.
I could see it either way. It...
And then I also pointed out...
There is some movie bias here, because of course the movie does show that you go through the wall, but that could have been a change. I never thought that it was, and I'm like, stubbornly holding on to like, no, it was always supposed to be that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like just walk at this wall, and then suddenly, without warning, you're somewhere else, is a little stupider. So, like, it probably would have been dumb to actually film it that way. So,
I guess.
Yeah. But that's just how it reads to me. And I pointed out that she specifically says, like, don't be scared you'll crash into it. This is important. And then he's scared he'll crash into it, and it works anyway. So it's just like...
Yeah, I think you interpreted that a little too literally, because I interpreted it as just, you have to be brisk, and the fear is only dangerous because you might, like, hold back and then end up crashing as a result. Which, that kind of... If that's true, which I think is, because it makes more sense than this thing detecting your fear, because like what would be the point of that? I think that that's the case, and if it is, I think that's evidence for it being walking through the wall, because like, you know, like only being able to go through it at a brisk, confident pace makes more sense.
Yeah, you have to be going fast enough so that the quarter step doesn't get blocked by the OOB. But anyway, so what do we got next? I just like the sentence, there was nothing else for it. That was... he was there, and then he wasn't. There was nothing else for it. It's just, I don't know. Nothing to really say about it. It was just a funny sentence. I like how to train confusion.
Yes. But yeah, so... Ron Weasley and the dirt on his nose.
Yeah.
Why did you put this down? Why is it notable?
I put it down because, you know, I've seen many times on the internet people come up with, like, alternate titles for the books, like, named after other characters, and they point out the fact that Ron has a smudge on his nose, like, 4 times for no reason. And so it's, like, his defining trait. It's just,
because it was noticeable to Harry, I guess, and because his mother was trying to wipe it off, and it wasn't...
It's just funny because, like, first, she's just like, Ron, you have something on your nose, and he's like... and then he says, "Get off," which, whatever, we'll get to that in a second.
Get off! No, it's get off.
Oh, like, get her off?
No, get off. Get off!
Alright. Yeah, so, like, that happens, and then, like, Harry notices it's still there, and then Hermione's like, oh, by the way, you have dirt on your nose, did you know? And then Harry notices it's there again at Hogwarts. It's just like goddamn. But, see, I have down here, for potential Britishisms, like, to me, the Garoff thing, it just sounds like, you know, somebody muddling their words, but I looked it up, and apparently it is specifically a British thing. Which I don't understand how, but that's what the internet says. I don't know if I should count it.
It's always weird, because that's just like Ron's way of speaking. It's...
Yeah. But then we have the word Ickle, which I checked, and that one definitely does count, because I've only ever heard of it in context of this series, and when I looked it up...
have I. That's the problem.
Wow.
I've never heard it in real life. It might be, like, outdated by now. I don't know.
Maybe. Because they're always like, oh, like, Ickle Ronnykins, and that kind of thing. And so it's like, I feel like if it wasn't, like, a local word, I would probably say, like, you know, like, if we were trying to just make fun of them, like, maybe Whittle or something.
Yeah, it's something like that, I think.
It is, well, let's just say it is localized entirely to, what is it, Ottery St. Catchpole is where they live.
Excuse me?
Well, that's where the borough is. Just this one tiny area. That's the only place they say Ickle. Except Peeves says it too, so never mind.
Yeah. Well, prefix. We mentioned this last time. I don't know why you put a note about it. But,
I don't know. They're just...
It's
I didn't remember talking about it.
Yeah. you said you thought they were a British thing, but apparently some American private schools have them. I never encountered any at my school. I'm pretty sure it is a private school thing. It has nothing to do with English or American.
I had to check to make sure it wasn't another localization thing. Here.
Because these badges changing color is very important.
Well, yeah, I pointed this one out because it is something that they had to go back and correct. In the original version of the book, his badge is silver, but then they changed it to be red or gold in the later prints because it contradicted the way that it looked when like Ron and Hermione got their badges.
They could have just changed the design.
But they specifically went back and changed the first book, though. That's the only reason I'm pointing it out. I wouldn't really care.
No, I know. I'm saying I don't know why they had to go and do that. It's not an inconsistency. You could just assume that it's something that the school changed, but yeah.
So we get to see a bit of the twins. Fred and George are just kind of amazing. They are generally amusing to watch, and I wanted to point out here because it's hard to visualize this if you're used to the actors, but apparently they're supposed to be like short and stocky. This was only ever mentioned like one time. The sentence I found, so like I did a Control F for the word stocky, and it showed up exactly once in the series, and it wasn't in reference to them, but the word stockier did show up in reference to them with the sentence, Charlie was built like the twins, shorter and stockier than Percy and Ron, who are both long and lanky. So, apparently that's a thing.
So yeah, I put I'm surprised the Hogwarts Express conductor and driver aren't named characters, unless they are. I don't think they are, though. It's a unique role, right? Like, I think this might be the only, like, significant wizard train, because usually they don't bother with muggle technology.
Right.
But it seems like this is kind of a special case. And Hogwarts is very prestigious, only like magic school in all the UK and all of that. So I wondered, like, who drives it? Like, who's the guy that goes around? Who is the sweets lady, as a matter of fact? Like, what does she do?
Oh God, do you not know?
No.
Oh God.
Oh no. Am I about to learn something I really don't want to know?
Oh, I'm almost tempted to not tell you, but it'll be a long time before we get there. In Cursed Child, we find out that the trolley witch is like an immortal manifestation that is part of the train itself that exists to like in addition to handing out candy, she also exists to make sure that people stay on the train, and if anybody tries to leave, she grows blades out of her arms and chases them down.
I did hear about this. She grows blades out of her arms and what?
Like, and it will basically chase you down and like force you back in. Like, it was fucking weird.
Well, that fucking discredits my, like, fan fiction I wrote when I was 5.
Oh, no.
It was just a story I wrote where they, like, the protagonists somehow get off on the wrong stop and end up finding, like, a bunch of ice dragons.
I see.
I don't remember much more than that. Anyway.
Suddenly reminded of the extremely long chapter of My Inner Life where, fucking Link and Jenna just fuck around with a bunch of griffins for no reason, and then they're never mentioned again. I don't know.
Good. So, yeah, that's slightly cursed. I mean, fitting for the cursed child, but what the fuck?
Yeah. So
I that was like in the recesses of my mind. Okay, that's fucking weird. Do you think the driver and conductor are like that too?
So here's the thing. You mentioned. So you mentioned conductor and driver. Yeah. Are they mentioned as two specific characters?
No. But it's just that I think most trains have them. But I guess if they're not actually mentioned as existing.
Because the only like I didn't look that closely, but there was a part I noticed where Hermione's like I talked to the conductor and he said we're almost there. And it was right. They're not given a name, and when I looked them up on the wiki, I'm like, is there a character here? And they're just like, this might be another weird manifestation like the trolley lady is. But,
God.
it was like
weird,
inconclusive.
Yeah. I mean, it's not unprecedented for... That was a weird pronunciation. It's not unprecedented for places to have manifestations tied to them. That's what Peeves is.
Yeah.
And we'll get to him later, but, like, he is not a thing. Like, he just was created out of the collective mischief in, like, the student body of Hogwarts or something.
It happened one morning.
Yes, basically. I need to look this up.
So you have written here how running parallel to a train is extremely dangerous.
Oh yeah.
Is it just like in case you trip or like?
Yeah, I don't know if this is like a common thing, but this is what I got out of it. There was like a news story probably about 10 years ago with some woman,
a mother in R.
Some woman was running parallel to a train, waving goodbye to her friends that were on it, and yeah, she tripped and fell like into the side of the platform and basically died from like the rails like grinding against her or something. I don't know exactly, but like she wasn't in front of the train, but even being next to it.
Well, yeah, because I mean you could get run over by it.
Right. So yeah, I don't know. I just that struck me like, oh, what are they doing?
Yeah, because that's in reference to Ginny, because there's this whole scene where, like, you know, Fred and George help Harry onto the train. They see his scar and they start freaking out, and they're like asking their mom about it. It's like, I wonder if he remembers what, you know, who looks like. And she's like, Fred, I swear to fucking God if you ask him this. Like, and Ginny's just like, oh, mummy, can I say him? I don't know why she sounds like that, but no. So yeah, Ginny has like 3 lines, and she's just, you know, like chasing after the train and really wants to go with and stuff, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, so I love this line here because just I noticed this because like this, there's nothing wrong with this, but it was just written in such a way that kind of made me laugh. Harry watched the girl and her mother disappear as the train rounded the corner. Houses flashed past the window. Harry felt a great leap of excitement. He didn't know what he was going to, but it had to be better than what he was leaving behind. So it's like, basically, if you take
you could misread that.
If you take it at face value, he's just completely shitting on them. So it's like his adoptive mother and future wife. It's like, yeah, fuck them.
So just to go back to the trolley witch for a second here, I looked her up. She's apparently not a manifestation. She is a real person. She's just extremely old.
Okay, I didn't remember. I just knew that there was something weird and supernatural about her.
Yeah, like, she was apparently hired around 1830 by Ottiline Gambol. I'm not going to look into this rabbit hole anymore, but yeah, it does mention the part about how she becomes more sinister if people try to leave, and transfigures her hands into claws, and apparently did this to
Albus and Scorpius, I think.
Well, yeah, but she also said there was someone else who, Sirius Black and the Marauders and Fred and George Weasley had tried before.
I see. All right then. So we have a pretty nice scene here that lasts for a long time. You wrote down as being very comfy.
Yeah.
And I agree. It's basically just the scene of Harry and Ron getting to know each other. Lots of stuff that goes on in this where they're kind of learning more about each other's worlds and stuff.
Yeah.
There's a part where so Harry says, like, is your whole family wizards? And he's just like, I think so. I think my mom has a second cousin who's an accountant, but we don't talk about him. I
guess he's a squib.
Maybe. I love, like, I love how he's just kind of disowned. It's like, you're too boring. Get out of here. Like, even Percy's cooler than you.
Oh my god.
So I wrote down a weird bit after the accountant part where it loses focus. Let me actually read out the lines here. It's another thing that I only noticed because I think I reread the line like 3 times for some reason, because I got distracted. I'm like, wait, what the fuck just happened? It's... Where is it here? Okay, so without me omitting anything, We have, I think Mom's got a second cousin who's an accountant, but we never talk about him. So you must know loads of magic already. The Weasleys were clearly one of those old wizarding families the pale boy in Diagon Alley had talked about. I heard you went to live with muggles, said Ron. Okay, so first we have Harry asking, you must know loads of magic. He doesn't get an answer. The narrator just starts focusing on something else, and then Ron asks a different question. Like, what happened? Did I miss a sentence here?
Reading this again, I think this is just supposed to imply the passage of time. Like, Harry asks this question, and then it just kind of fades out, and it's like, it just shows, like, oh yeah, they had a conversation, and during which time it was made apparent that the Weasleys were clearly one of those old wizarding families, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I guess.
And then it cuts back in when Ron asks him, I heard you went to live with muggles.
It was just funny because it happened right at a like, page break for me, and so I'm like... Is my PDF somehow missing a page? Because this doesn't seem to flow. And I had to check...
Oh, interesting. The first line on the page for me is, yes, I think so, said Ron. I think, Mums.
Well, my PDF is not even formatted the same way as the book. Like, when I checked in the book, this was just in the middle of a page. So that's like, I'm like, what the fuck happened here?
Good.
I don't know, it was just kind of stupid. Oh yeah, and when Ron's talking about... his, like, various hand-me-downs, he says that he has Charlie's old wand. He does get a new wand at the start of the third book, because it breaks, but I find it kind of weird. Like...
I assume you can use other people's wands, it just won't be very, like...
Right.
Effective.
Yeah, we do see that later on. Like, you can use another person's wand, they're just not as good as if you get, like, one that's meant for you.
Which is... It's unfortunate, because it means that Ron would have had kind of an inherent disadvantage in class, right? Like, trying to use spells and stuff.
Right, and as we've seen in an earlier chapter, wands aren't that expensive. Like, I know the Weasleys are poor, but you'd think that for something that's that important, they'd be able to actually get him a proper one.
Yeah.
Like, I can understand, obviously, they don't want to pay 1,000 galleons for a broomstick when he doesn't need one, but the wand's like, you need that. So.
Yeah. Speaking of money, there's the part with the trolley lady, and Harry orders, something of everything, and somehow it only comes to, 7 sickles and 11 knuts, and I calculated, like and that's fucking £2.18 or $3.01. That's nothing. That's in 2021 money. That's fucking nothing. What?
Yeah, that's like...
Why are these sweets so cheap?
I would say that's like between 1 and 2 candy bars. Like when I go to the 7-Eleven, there's a deal 2 for $4. Like...
Yeah, if it's like... I'm trying to think, because like if there were penny sweets, sure. But they're not. He's getting like these giant-ass fucking chocolate frogs, pumpkin pasties.
And apparently they got a shit ton of the frogs, too, because Harry gets, like, 8 cards, and then later on when Draco and his fucking crew show up, there's, like, still more that they're, like, trying to steal, so...
Yeah.
But, so I have to point this out. In the movie, Harry, he's, like, looking at the candy, he says, oh, we'll take the lot. And this is another thing, where people... who either didn't read the books or didn't remember. Like, I mean, you don't have to remember every tiny little bit, I get that. But people are just like, wow, what a greedy bastard. He bought all the candy that they had so nobody else could get any. It's like, no, he didn't. That's not what he meant.
He took something of everything, like in the book.
But it's like, that thing gets posted all the time. And it's like a joke between, like... There's people who are fans of the series but don't know it by heart. There's people who are, like, only seen the movies. There's people who barely know anything about it. Like, everyone just revels in this scene of Harry buying all the stuff. It's like, it didn't fucking happen.
Well, because, complex things are hard to, propagate, I guess.
I do like the idea of him just saying, fuck all y'all, I'm buying all of it. But it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, we get the chocolate frog cards. The book didn't mention if they're actually, like, animated. Like, not the cards, but, like, in the movie the frog, like, jumps out the window and stuff. That's actually never mentioned here.
Oh.
So I don't
Yeah, I
know
don't
if
know.
they're just shaped like that or if they do move.
I also grew up with the games, which for some reason took a lot of inspiration from all of this candy. Like, I don't want to get into it too much here, but like, at least the early games that I played, they had Bertie Bott's every flavored beans as fucking currency. They had chocolate frogs to restore your health. They had wizard cards as like a 100% requirement, like a collectible that you could get. They would have, like, even the third game had pumpkin pasties and cauldron cakes, as I don't even remember what they did. I think they were like a secondary currency. It was fucking weird.
Okay, then.
Just,
Yeah.
so many of these things, like, keep showing up in the games.
Somebody really liked this chapter, I guess.
Apparently.
See, on Dumbledore's card, it mentions that he likes chamber music and bowling.
10-pin bowling, specifically.
Is there a non-10-pin bowling?
Yeah.
What is it?
I don't know. I know it exists.
Okay. So let's get into the cards here. So I did look up all of these people. I didn't write down anything about them because it doesn't really matter. But
Yeah.
so we have the ones that Ron is looking for. There's Agrippa, and is it just pronounced Ptolemy or Ptolemy?
I think it's Ptolemy. I'm not
Probably.
sure. It might be Ptolemy.
I don't know. I didn't bother looking them up at all. There's Morgana, that is the first one that Harry gets. We have Hengist of Woodcroft, which, if I remember correctly, was the person who founded Hogsmeade.
Oh, okay.
Alberic Grunnion, which was the inventor of dung bombs.
Oh.
Then we have Circe. I think it's Circe.
I don't know where it says it. I'm trying to find
Circe.
There we go. I would say Circe. Okay.
I looked her. I forget what her deal was. I know she was Greek. That's all I remember.
Okay.
Cliodna. I don't remember who that is either. I know one of these had like a bunch of birds that did their bidding. I don't remember who's who.
Good.
But there was one other card in there, and
No, there's two others.
oh, there were.
Paracelsus and Merlin.
Oh, well, okay. So Merlin I didn't count because he gets mentioned a lot later on in the series.
Right.
Paracelsus is the only one other than Merlin that does get mentioned one other time in the series, and it is only one other time, and you're going to love the context here.
Oh, boy.
There is a bust of him in Hogwarts that Peeves apparently is planning to, like, push over onto somebody when they walk through the hall, and Nearly Headless Nick warns Harry not to go down that hall.
Amazing.
And this is the
for the
person who
record,
discovered Parcel Tongue, apparently.
He was also a real person.
Oh, okay.
I mean, several of these people were real. Like, fuck. I know Ptolemy was. Where's the... Okay, I think it might just be Ptolemy in that. And then yeah, so some of them are made up, some of them are real, some of them are from like Arthurian myth, like Merlin and Morgana. Yeah, I don't know. Just stupid anecdote. Paracelsus always makes me laugh because there was like a thing at my college once during Valentine's Day where you could like dedicate a song to someone and request the radio team, well, not radio team, but like people playing the music in the cafeteria to do that. And I left one that was basically just a shitpost, and they didn't do it as far as I knew. But I tried to have "What Is Love" by Hathaway play and dedicated it to. I wrote in Paracelsus, the father of modern toxicology, because that's what he is. He studied poisons and stuff.
But did anybody have his eyes are as green as a fresh pickled toad, his hair is as black as a chalkboard? Oh god, how the fuck does it go? It's I wish he was mine, he's really divine, the boy who defeated the Dark Lord. I think that was Ginny's Valentine to Harry. It was something along those lines.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Eyes were as green as a fresh pickled toad.
Oh my god.
Why are we pickling toads?
Because whimsy.
Speaking of whimsy, so
Yes.
yeah, you asked here, should the beans count as whimsy?
There was a similar snack, at least in the UK, when I was a teenager, called Bean Boozled. It was basically the same thing. They couldn't call it Bertie Bott's, but
yeah, I'm pretty sure that was based off of this.
Yeah, it was the same. It was the same thing. It's just there are beans of different flavors, and some of them are disgusting.
Yeah, I've never tried them, but I know that exists. I've watched, like, Ashens try them and stuff. I'm actually going to say that the beans do not count as whimsy, because our, like, definition of that is just anything that goes out of its way to be inconvenient. Like,
I thought it was just things that were strange or that seemed to only be the case for the sake of being amusing and whimsical.
I guess, yeah.
To me, it's like, I don't think that realistically people would actually like these, because Bean Boozled was basically just a fad, and then no one liked them after a while. The fact that they remain continuously popular in the Wizarding world seems like weird to me.
Yeah, like I would argue that, like, their whole existence is a gimmick, and like people aren't going to get these necessarily just to have, like, a snack. It's to have an experience.
Yeah.
I would say that one's debatable. I could see it counting. I didn't think it did at first, but yeah, maybe.
Maybe. We should probably decide definitively, so maybe we can get a gauge from the audience on this.
2 Birdie Bot's beans count as whimsy.
Yes. Anyway. So we also get our first introduction to Hermione and Neville, and it never really occurred to me until I read it now, but, like, Hermione and Neville basically get presented with the same amount of importance here as just being incidental characters on the train that then also show up in Gryffindor. It's going to take a little while for Hermione to kind of cement her role as, like, the tritagonist. Yeah,
so Neville, like, in this chapter, his entire existence is just, I lost Trevor. Does anyone know where he went? and we'll get the end of Trevor's character arc later.
Yes.
So Hermione is really fucking annoying in these first few chapters. Like,
he's like, I read all the books. I bet you guys did too. Huh? You didn't? Oh.
Yeah, and she's just like, Harry immediately describes her as sounding bossy, and I can picture that.
Oh boy.
Where's the hold on, there's a
I know exactly what they mean though. Like, I've known kids like that sounded like that.
Right. There was a line, I'm trying to find it now, where I don't know, you continue for a bit while I actually find the line here.
Sure. So, and I mean, I guess it's the first time that we see the 3 characters kind of interacting, and it is funny that they have kind of a, you know, less than positive reception to Hermione initially, but she obviously grows on them. Speaking of Ron, though, I really like him, especially in these early chapters. He's a really sweet kid.
Yeah.
And I like his friendship with Harry.
There's an interesting thing about that, because I've heard that before the first movie came out, Ron was, like, the fan favorite character.
Apparently.
And that the director of the movie or whatever, or, like, the screenwriter, liked Hermione more, and so that was kind of what caused her to get, like, more of a positive reception, because, like, she basically stole all of Ron's good moments. Like, it wasn't so bad in the first movie. There were a couple instances of it, but it got really bad by, like, the third.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing better Ron in the books here again.
Yeah. Ron is a good character. I've always been pretty neutral towards him, but like, just reading this one on the train ride, like, he really is just... He's just a good kid. Like, he's...
Yeah.
I mean, and Harry is too. That's the thing, is, like, a lot of people will kind of shit on Harry for the later books where he gets kind of surly and, like, moody at times, but, like, here he's like coming from a life of having nothing and is immediately wanting to share, like, the first time he actually has anything. So basically they hit it off well. Anyway, this is so unimportant, but so are you sure that's a real spell? Well, it's not very good, is it? I've tried a few simple spells just for practice. It's all worked for me. Nobody in my family's magic at all. It was ever such a surprise when I got my letter, but I was ever so pleased, of course. I mean, it's the very best school of witchcraft there is, I've heard. I've learned all of course books by heart, of course. I just hope it will be enough. I'm Hermione Granger, by the way. Who are you? She said all this very fast. And in that bit, she says, it was ever such a surprise, and I was ever so pleased. And it immediately made me think of Lila from Hey Arnold. But,
I don't think I've seen very much of that show.
That was okay. But yeah, Hermione will have time to become a better character later, but right now she's just kind of annoying. Also, she says that, it's like, do you know what house you're going to be in yet? I hope I'm in Gryffindor. It sounds by far the best. And I'm a little curious why. I don't know, like...
Probably just because it produces a lot of great wizards, and she's like, oh, I like the sound of that. I don't know.
I'm still...
I can definitely understand her being anti-Slytherin if she's, like, done a bunch of learning about what they've produced, but... Yeah, I don't know.
I always got the impression, this is mostly a fandom thing, I think, but outside of the bravery aspect, Gryffindor has kind of a reputation of being like a bunch of jocks.
Apparently.
So, you'd think that she would be more into Ravenclaw, even if she does decide to go to Gryffindor in the end, but whatever. Here's another instance of the book just kind of having a stupid moment.
Did she decide? Because there are people that question why she wasn't in Ravenclaw if she's like by far one of the smartest people in the school. But
yeah, they mentioned that in Order of the Phoenix. Somebody says like, with brains like yours, how are you not in Ravenclaw? And she says that the Hat did want to put me in there at first, but then eventually decided to go with Gryffindor.
I imagine partially because she wanted to be in Gryffindor, because it is ultimately the kid's choice, right?
Probably. Well, it is, a lot of it is choice, yeah, but that I'm just saying that's probably the reason. So yeah, here's a good moment of the book just kind of doing something stupid for no reason. So Harry's like trying to get Ron's mind off of some other stupid shit, because like the stupid
spell didn't work.
Yeah, the spell didn't work. He says, so what do your oldest brothers do now that they've left anyway? Harry was wondering what a wizard did once he'd finished school. I'm like, yes, thank you. That's why he asked. Like, I read that sentence, and I immediately pictured, like, the narrator from Caillou saying it. Where it's just like, Harry was wondering what a wizard did once... I'm like, we got that. You don't, like... I like noticing little pointless sentences like that. They always make me laugh.
I don't really have anything to add, but
yeah,
sure. It didn't stand out to me.
So, what's the deal with this spell anyway? Like, because Ron has grown up around wizards his whole life and should know what spells sound like, so this one that's like a poem should stand out as like, yeah, this one's probably fake.
Well, one, he's a child and doesn't know any better. Two, it could be early installment witness, but probably not. But three, the biggest thing for me is probably just like, I mean, spells can be anything. Like, they're traditionally Latin phrases, but you don't even need to say things.
Eat slugs.
It's just an expression of the will of you trying to execute the spell, right? Because like some spells you actually can't even do unless you have a strong enough will for it. Like when Harry tries to use Crucio and it doesn't work because he is not cruel enough.
Right.
Like you have to have a will to do it, and the words are just an expression of that. They're probably only in Latin because that was the language spoken by the people who first really codified magic, I guess, in the history of the wizarding world.
Yeah. I have my own questions as to why, like, because we get the whole, like, it's Leviosa, not Leviosa. Like, if it's just a matter of, like, I want this thing to float, why does the pronunciation matter? Like, who decided this?
I'm not sure weird. Exactly. It is kind of questionable, you're right. But, I mean, I can't imagine that people down in, like, you know, the African wizarding school or the Japanese wizarding school are, like, out here using the Latin phrases. I'm just imagining in, what's it called, like, Shotokoro or something? Like, I can't imagine them being like, Wingardium Leviosa. Like, come on,
right.
Do that.
That'd be pretty bad. Maybe there's different translations of the spells that also work, but all of them are very picky.
Do they ever describe... I think they describe, like, inventors of spells sometimes.
Yeah, right? Like Snape invented Sectum Sempra.
Sectum Sempra. Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, what, did you just wave your wand around and say a bunch of bullshit until you found one that did something? Like,
I don't know. I guess it's just... Yeah, I would be curious. I mean, God. that's getting into like magic system rules and stuff, which
we're getting highly
very,
off topic.
It's played very lightly with them, but I am curious about that. But we can talk more about that if it comes up again and is more relevant sometime.
So, let's try to wrap this first one up here. I made a mention of Harry is already not liking the whole like say you know who instead of Voldemort thing, because there's a sentence where it says like he's feeling more uncomfortable thinking about it than he used to because of like how afraid everybody else is. They say later on, I think it's Dumbledore, is like fear of a name increases fear of a thing itself. Actually, that might have even been first chapter. I don't remember. So that's just kind of more of that. You mentioned the train journey thing here.
Yeah. So I'm like, there's no way that, because they're like, oh, it's only becoming night as they get there. I'm like, this is going from London to Scotland. This is like 12 hours, isn't it? So I'm like, let's see. I picked like, okay, London King's Cross to like Inverness, which is a really, really far northern city in Scotland. And that is like just about 12 hours. But that's because you have to change trains a couple times. It's not the most efficient. I checked one that was like nearer the south of Scotland. I checked Glasgow, and that was only about 6 hours. And there's no way, like, the distance between Glasgow and Inverness is not as much as the distance between London and Glasgow. So assuming that Hogwarts Express has like custom tracks that go directly to Hogwarts, it probably actually wouldn't be that short of a journey. Not mentioning that long of a journey. Not even getting into like how it could possibly
like magic
be going past it with magic or something. Yeah.
Yeah, because they left at 11 and they get there when it's nighttime. And have you been to Scotland?
Nope.
Okay.
I've been to England and Wales.
Because I'm not looking at a map right now, but like I wasn't sure like actually how far north it is, like compared to like U.S. states, I guess. Because like when they get to Hogwarts, like it's September 1st and it's nighttime, and Harry said like he was shivering from the cold. I'm like, would it really be that cold? But maybe.
Oh yes, it would be.
Okay.
Absolutely.
But anyway, so. Oh yeah, so they did move. That's I actually like the scene of Harry interacting with Draco on the train. Draco is such a two-dimensional bully in this chapter. Like he does get fleshed out more later.
Give me your sweets.
But you know, he does the whole like, if you're going to be associating with this riffraff, like you'll learn that some wizarding families are better than others. And Harry's just like, okay, thanks, I can figure it out on my own. And
I mean, that was a quip. That was him being sassy.
You said that does count as being sassy?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it should. I felt it was debatable. If you think it does, then we can count that.
I think it does. Okay, it looks like Scotland is actually not on the same... Is it latitude that's like how north you are? It's not on the same set as any U.S. state, except for like Alaska, maybe. It's like it's basically on par with Canada.
Okay. Then yeah, I can get that done. But yeah, what's the exact line? It's just like, I think I can work out for myself what the right type of wizards are. Something like that. Either way, it's just a good interaction. But then they're just like, he gets all pissy about it, and they're just like, oh, well, we're hungry, and we see that you still have candy, so we're going to be assholes. And then Scabbers has his defining moment of glory by biting Goyle's finger, and that causes them to run off. And there's a mention of, like, maybe they were worried about more rats being hidden in the sweets, or maybe it was because Hermione was coming by. I'm like, oh yeah, sure, she's going to run them off. But, no, it was...
Actually, even England is basically parallel with Canada. Sorry.
I don't mind. But, yeah, that's... Scabbers' appearance in this chapter is pretty great, just because, like, he's constantly sleeping, and... Ron's just bitching about how useless he is, and he bites Goyle's finger, gets slammed against a wall, and then Ron's just like, I can't believe it, he's sleeping again.
I do wonder why Peter felt the need to do that. I suppose he just was being annoyed by the noise, maybe.
I don't know. So, Anyway.
Because, yeah, we're going to have to keep in mind that every time Scabbers does anything, that is a human person.
Yeah, that is an actual human being doing these things. And probably falling asleep constantly because he's just bored out of his mind. But,
oh my God.
So, they get to Hogwarts, and I've got to say, the scene of them, like, the first years going on their own with Hagrid and seeing the castle for the first time and taking the boat ride, it's like, that is just such a good visual. It's...
Yeah.
Like, I can imagine...
we have the fucking boat scene as our background for this book.
Yeah. Like, I can imagine just that being the type of thing that sticks with you forever if this was a real thing, because it's like, you get to school, you have no idea what it's going to be like, and it's just this gigantic castle, and it's like, oh my God.
So Trevor's character arc, huh? Do you just mean the fact that he gets found in the boat eventually?
Yes. Trevor's character arc is, he's missing for the entire chapter, like, and then somehow ends up in one of the boats at the end. Like,
well, I mean, I imagine he was just following them anyway, or was like around, and Neville just couldn't find him.
I guess. Like, I kept getting the impression that Trevor just wanted to escape and not have anything to do with any of this. But apparently he's just like, nope, I'm just gonna follow behind you and get in a different boat, like different from Neville. Keep him worrying a little bit longer. But
I mean, he's just an animal, right? He doesn't have sentience.
I know.
Like the owls do, but...
Well, that's what I said. It's like, I figured, you know, if it's just a normal frog, he probably just wants to fuck off and, like, just, I don't know, go live by the lake.
A bit different.
Oh, I'm so sorry. But yeah,
anyway,
we've reached the end of that chapter, finally, now that we're more than an hour in. And
yes.
So, we have Chapter 7, The Sorting Hat, which for some reason, the artwork of this one is Peeves, even though he does nothing in this chapter. So, we meet McGonagall, and she's talking about the different houses. I don't know if he's scared of her.
He's like, oh, she seems strict.
Yeah, he's like, this is someone you wouldn't want to cross, I think is what it said.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she's introducing the House Cup, and I've got to say, the House Cup is the most fucking pointless thing. Like, this first
I guess
book...
it's just to encourage competition, like...
If anything, I'd say that almost just makes the houses turn on each other more, but...
Sure, I mean, yeah, there's definitely problems with the house system, but I think the intent is that a drive to compete would translate into a drive to learn. I don't know.
Maybe, because, so, like, she introduces this thing is basically, like, here's the 4 houses, like, all of them have produced great witches and wizards. Not really saying what they are yet, because the Sorting Hat does that later. And she's like, your triumphs will earn you points. If you break rules, you'll lose points, and whoever has the most at the end of the year gets this great honor, is how she words it. And
It's bragging rights.
I'm seeing this as the type of thing where it's like, it actually works out really well with the books, because, like, in this first book, there's a huge amount of importance placed on this House Cup. And after this, like, you see it again sort of in the second one, and then after that they like never really care anymore. And I think that's perfect because it tracks with, like, you know, being a kid. It's just like, oh, we gotta be the best house, it's important. And then when you're 13, it's like, who the fuck cares? Like,
yeah, I mean, that was probably intentional, or at least subconsciously.
Maybe.
I don't know. I mean, the series has this general trend, in general, of going from this kind of childlike wonder to these more serious things.
Right. That
is like an analog to, you know, Harry would be going through the same kind of coming of age in real life. It's just that, you know, this is with magic, so, you know, some things never change, basically.
Right. Did you ever have any type of house system?
I was hoping you would ask. Yeah, we had a thing at my secondary school called communities, but the only time they ever came up really was for things like sports day. We did not have house points. We did not have any kind of award at the end of the year. The main thing that it was so my school was like it was a performing arts school, but that only just meant that they had like some focus on performing arts. It was still a general school for general subjects and stuff, but they were like a specialty in performing arts. So all 5 of the communities were named after theatres in London. So we had, what was it? Apollo, Adelphi, Globe, Lyric, and Lyceum were the 5. And they had like their own symbols associated with them, and I think they were associated with the subjects as well. So like I was in Apollo, and I think that these were basically completely randomly decided. Like sometimes people would be in the same house as the same community as like siblings. In fact, usually they would be, but not always. Sometimes it just wouldn't happen. I don't really know. But like because I was in Apollo, like everyone else in my tutor group, which is basically what homeroom is, I think it's the same thing. Everyone in my group was also Apollo. Like, Apollo's associated subjects were, like, the sciences and the technologies. So, like, when I say technologies, I mean, like, woodworking, textiles, that stuff. Yes. Those and the sciences were Apollo. So, like, you know, the tutors that I had were either science teachers, or one time I had a textiles teacher as my tutor. And again, when I say tutor, I just mean the person that basically checks you in and out at the beginning and the end of the day. So it really did not impact very much.
Okay.
The only other thing was, like, our uniform, because, like, we had jumpers over polo shirts, and the jumpers would have, like, the name of the community we were in the community color. So Apollo was yellow, so my jumper had Apollo written in yellow on it.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, I didn't have any type of thing like that. At least, I seem to remember it in like junior high or like maybe my first year of high school. I think there was an attempt at having this, but it didn't lead to anything. And like, I don't even remember what the point of it was. I think it was dropped after like a month.
Good.
So, I guess I was just curious, like, if this had any kind of presence outside of boarding schools, and I guess you gave me my answer.
Yeah, answer is basically yes, but not usually very important.
So, you have a question here that I found kind of funny.
How the fuck does Harry know what McGonagall's looking at? The same thing happens with Dumbledore later. He's like, McGonagall looked at Ron's stained nose. How the fuck do you know that?
I mean... So, I'm seeing this as there's possibly 2 answers here. So let me find the actual wording. This is so unimportant. But
it stood out to me. I'm like,
what do you mean
she looked at that? How do you know
she
that?
says, the sorting ceremony will take place in a few minutes, blah, blah, blah. I suggest you all smarten yourselves up as much as you can while you're waiting. Which, by the way, I had to check if that was a British phrase. It sounds like one, but apparently it's not.
We'll go on a tangent about that. I have a couple things to say about that.
Okay. Yeah, it says, her eyes lingered for a moment on Neville's cloak, which was fastened under his left ear, which I don't get why that's an issue. And on Ron's smudged nose, because Ron Weasley had the dirt on his nose. So I'm unsure if this is, like, Harry narration, or if this is, like, a weird, out-of-place, like, omniscient narration saying what she's looking at. So either he's just, like, I could see her glancing at Neville and Ron, and I'm inferring this is what she's looking at, or it's just out of place.
To me, I don't know how you would even infer who she was looking at. Like, broad directions, sure, but the kids are all standing together. How do you know she's looking at these 2 specifically?
Yeah,
Same thing happens with Dumbledore later.
Dumbledore, that one I feel like is more reasonable, because they're in a giant room, and Harry, like, Dumbledore looks over at the Weasley twins when he says... No,
that's not more reasonable. Because it's a large hall. Because degrees.
Okay, work with me here. So, the context is, he says that, like Filch wants everyone to... he wants the new students to know that there should be no magic in the halls, and some of our older students would be good to remember this as well. And then he, like, glances over at the Weasley twins. I'm taking this as basically, like... he glances at the Gryffindor table and very near Harry, because he's sitting, like, right by them, and because Harry knows that the twins are troublemakers, he's just like, he's probably looking at them.
It still seemed questionable to me, personally.
Okay. If I can complain about the ice cream, you can complain about this.
There's nothing wrong with the ice cream.
Well, no.
It's not equal. Don't compare them.
Well, no, the ice cream was stupid. You called me out on it.
Oh.
Remember?
Well, this isn't stupid. That's what I'm trying to say.
It's a little bit stupid.
No, it's not. Okay.
So what about smarten up now?
So this is weird because when I was a kid, right, I would always be made to have my hair cut really short. So I was raised male. Anyway, so it would always get cut like pretty short, and they would always say like, "Oh yeah, you look so smart with your new haircut." And, like whenever it would get kind of long, they'd be like, "Oh, we need to get it cut shorter so it will look smarter." And like I just kind of took this for granted, but as I grew older, no one else I knew other than my family ever referred to appearances as like looking smart, because that just sounds completely stupid to me. Like in what way is short hair smarter looking than longer hair? What is that? What?
Yeah, I don't know either, and I also hate it when people say "that smart" instead of "that hurts." Like, I don't get why that's a thing. But
I don't know.
Language is.
But
weird.
yeah, I don't know. It's just in this context, this sounds fine. Like she's basically just being like, oh, make yourselves look presentable. Like, have your clothes not, you'll like that, like have them sit properly on you. Make sure your face is clean. Like that's reasonable to me.
Yeah.
Reasonable enough, but. Like, I wonder, like, is that the same meaning as, like, oh, and also, you need to, like, look a certain way to be considered, like, acceptable? It's like, what?
I don't know. When I looked it up, apparently there's, like, U.S. exclusive definitions of smarten up that actually literally mean, like, becoming smarter. And then there's, like, one that was listed as universal that's, like, to make yourself presentable or clean. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
So... Ghost.
Well, just for the record, it wasn't like a super strict thing. Like at some point, I was just like, I want my hair longer, and they're like, okay. So yeah. But ghosts. The ghosts are fucking weird. Why are they here? What determines if someone becomes a ghost?
That is discussed later.
It is?
Yep. End of the fifth book.
Well, okay then. I suppose that makes sense.
If anything, I would just say the ghosts are depressing, because basically the way it's established is like, if you are a person with magical abilities, when you die, you have the choice to either like move on or to stay behind as a ghost. And so the ghosts don't have an idea of what the afterlife is because they chose to stay behind. They didn't get to see it. And if you make that choice, you're just kind of stuck with it. So, like,
right.
It's like if you're afraid of death or whatever, you're just kind of now stuck in this plane of existence where you can't really interact with stuff for presumably forever. And that seems like that would be extremely depressing.
Maybe kind of. Honestly, the choice appeals to me. I've always been afraid of death, and this is almost like... This is about as good of an alternative as, like, I could imagine.
Yeah, I suppose.
Like, the fact that they can't choose to go and do anything else kind of sucks, but I mean, they can still talk to people, they can still have friends and social interactions. Like, it's a little different because they're fucking ghosts, but...
Yeah. It's like, that's all you really get, though, is you can communicate with people, and that's it. You can't interact with objects, you are pretty limited in what you can do.
I suppose, yeah. I mean, there are lots of activities that do require interacting with things, but,
I suppose we can get into that more later as we see the ghost.
Yeah.
So you said the Sorting Hat song is definitely whimsy. I would say the hat itself is whimsy. I don't think the song is, but
maybe.
The song, to me, I think is fine as just a tradition. I actually like reading through the song every time that they have it, because it's a little different every time it shows up, and it usually kind of just does the job of like introducing the houses. And so with this one, I think it worked pretty well. It kind of hits all the main points it needs to. I did notice though, or perhaps in Slytherin, you'll make your real friends. Those cunning folk use any means to achieve their ends. Doesn't really paint them in any positive light. Like,
I think it's a weird one, because cunning is simultaneously a positive trait and with negative connotations.
Yeah.
Because it basically means being like, clever and thinking outside the box and like quick thinking and all that kind of thing. Which, I mean, they already mentioned like wit for Ravenclaw, so like what's the difference?
Well, I mean, it's probably the difference between intelligence and wisdom.
Maybe
I don't know, because like
it's a very weird one.
Yeah. So I guess this is a good time to talk about the houses, because I've seen plenty of people make jokes about like, there was this one where it's a meme where it's like, so the Hogwarts founders were together and they're like, so I have an idea. So you know how there's basically 4 types of kids? There's like brave, there's like brave, smart, evil, and miscellaneous, right? And they're like, yes, go on. So basically here, so if we're gonna actually look at this as like everybody in the world can be defined into one of these categories without that much overlap, and like there's no like missing one, like nobody would be something different from these, like
Okay.
it does a pretty good job, I think. Like I couldn't really think of much that like completely falls outside of this. Hufflepuff really does kind of just become the dumping ground if you're not good enough for the others, but it's
weird. Like people perceive it that way, but it's described as just like,
yeah,
it's hard workers and loyal people like that. Those are, I don't see why those have been like designated as like not real qualities on par with brave or smart.
I don't think people say that. Like they do count. It's just that those are kind of the boring ones, and it also has this reputation of like the students that are just kind of not really very good at anything always end up going there. It's kind of weird. So like Gryffindor, their whole thing is bravery, but like how often does that really come up in everyday if you're not Harry Potter and you're not having to fight a giant snake and all this shit? Like like you can say, yeah, there's bravery in interactions, like
to stand out and not be a sheep or whatever.
So yeah, I guess that basically just is like they're
An
more
independent spirit.
Extroverted, I guess, would be Gryffindor.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I'd just say independent spirit and like,
And then Ravenclaw I always see as pretty straightforward, just like it's just studious. It doesn't have to mean like necessarily like super smart bookworm, but like that's just kind of the thing that you value more than other things is.
It's weird because I genuinely have no idea which house I would be in because I'm not studious. Like I was really bad at studying, but I did well at school anyway.
Right.
I don't think of myself as particularly brave. I'm a fucking wuss. I guess, I don't know if you would even say I'm loyal. Like I give people chances and I'm quite forgiving, but I'm also not really a hard worker and I don't really make a point out of like, stick by anyone no matter what. Like it would depend. I mean, maybe kind of. And then, I mean, Slytherin's just the evil house, so whatever.
Yeah, well, I was actually gonna say, there is the official sorting test. I've never taken it because I never wanted to like actually identify with any of them. That's always a big thing in the fandom is like, what house are you? And I'm just like, I don't fucking know.
I can't remember when I did it. I did it once and it gave me Ravenclaw, but I think that was partially because I was expecting it,
Yeah, I've never taken it because I don't really want to be labeled that way. If that sounds really stupid, but I like not knowing. But if I had to guess, I would probably say Hufflepuff because, like, I don't think of myself as being a hard worker, but I'm closer to that than the other ones, I think.
Yeah, fair enough.
And if we're going with Hufflepuff being the dumping ground, then that works too. So then we get to Slytherin, which, like, I've seen, there's plenty of people online who identify, like, I'm a Slytherin, they're not all bad, like, there's good Slytherins, like, I'm trying to think, like, with the defining trait of them being, like, they're very cunning and, like...
I've also heard it mentioned that they're, like, ambitious.
Yeah, that's the thing, is it's ambition. And ambition isn't a bad trait. But it's always paired with, like, they're basically willing to do what they need to achieve their goals and like fuck anybody
like
else.
Pragmatism.
Like it really is just the negative house, and it kind of sucks. I wish that
you could kind of maybe say that like if not for the fact that it had produced all of these dark wizards, that maybe people would have a more positive opinion of it, and they would not see it as, if they're Gryffindor, if there's a bunch of evil wizards out of Gryffindor, they might say like, oh, these people are ruthless, and they would do anything because they're like, you could twist around a lot of these to potentially be more negative if you just change the wording or something like that. So
yeah,
there might be some amount of like historical bias, like in-universe historical bias going into this.
Yeah, it's just, I guess I'm curious for people who defend Slytherin, like I want to like this house. I feel like when people say like everybody who was ever in it in the stories is evil, I'm like, no, not really. That's the thing, is like I think Slughorn was ultimately a good guy. Like he has his negative traits. He has that weird like basically leeching off of other people's fame, and he like was too cowardly to tell Dumbledore about the Horcruxes and stuff. Like he's not perfect, but he's still ultimately a good guy.
He's probably the best Slytherin that is presented in the book.
There's also Regulus Black, who was he was evil enough to become a Death Eater, but then changed his mind. So it's like, shades of gray. But it sucks that there's no students that are not jackasses. Like, so yeah, for people...
Actually, doesn't Albus get sorted into Slytherin as well?
Yeah, he does. I guess that's a good point, but Cursed Child sucks ass. So, but yeah, for anybody who defends Slytherin, I'm curious to see what, like, good aspects we haven't thought of, because it really just always does get painted in a negative light. And
now see, here's the other thing, right, is that these are not universal pillars. These are constructs made up by the founders of Hogwarts, these houses, and what they represent. And that ties into the next thing I have written on here, actually, which is just that I was curious, like, what the fuck is the Sorting Hat? Where did it come from? Like, obviously it has a little bit more information presented about it in later things. There's the whole thing with Gryffindor's sword and forks and all of that. But I was like, okay, what is this thing? Where did it come from? Apparently, it was just a normal hat that Gryffindor had. This is from the wiki. It was a normal hat. And then the founders were sitting around one day, and they were like, we've been doing the sorting, but one day we're not going to be here. So how will the sorting happen after that? And they were just like, how about we collectively enchant this hat with our 4 intelligences into one thing? And they were just like, yeah, that's a great idea. And
there is a sorting song from one of the later books where the hat says that, like, old Gryffindor took me off his head and, like, gave me life, basically. I don't remember how it went exactly, but it's like, it was specifically Gryffindor's hat, apparently.
It is Gryffindor's hat, but apparently all 4 of them put their intelligences inside of it. Okay. So it's kind of just like a weird mind meld clone of all 4 of the founders inside a sentient hat.
So basically it's Axe from Animorphs, got it.
I don't know what that is, but...
Well, other than him not being a hat, but whatever. So yeah, what is it? It uses legilimency to do the sorting. So
yeah, according to the wiki, it uses legilimency, which to me means it can use magic. And then I'm like, okay, if things that you create can use magic as well, then what else can you give magic to? Can you give it to animals? Can you give it to muggles? And
yeah, so like, we have like the diary that has magical powers and shit because it's a Horcrux. It literally has a soul inside it.
That's true. I don't think the Sorting Hat is a Horcrux.
No,
because then the founders would be alive. So.
I mean, let's be honest. Have we actually seen proof that Gryffindor is dead? But no, I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, I never really thought too much about it because this is the same universe where we have the paintings that have sentience, and there's like talking,
which is different from being a ghost.
Yeah, there's like talking statues. Like there's a part I remember from the 7th book where like a statue gets blown up during the battle at Hogwarts, and Harry steps over it, and it's just like, oh, don't mind me, I'll just lay down here, I guess. It's like, so like this thing obviously has like a sense of self.
Yeah.
Who bothered to do this? Like.
Yeah. This is highly questionable.
Yeah, I think of the hat as kind of like hibernating for most of the year,
Probably,
and like
yeah. I mean, Ron mentions at one point, is it Ron or is it someone else that's like, he probably just spends all year thinking of next year's song.
Yeah, I remember that line, and so I figure, he probably like spends a few days coming up with this song and then just kind of like sleeps for the rest of the year or something. But yeah, why do we have this living hat? It's a little weird. So I'm gonna go ahead and call the hat whimsy.
Yeah, probably.
So yeah, we're going through the sorting here. I actually have an activity that I want to do in a minute here, but I guess let me just point out a few things here. So I have hat stalls. Apparently this is a thing. It's never mentioned in the books, but it is an official term. A hat stall is when it takes 5 minutes or longer for somebody to be sorted. And apparently it only happens about once every 50 years. It happened with McGonagall and with Peter Pettigrew, apparently.
Oh, really?
And then there's close calls, basically. They said Hermione took almost 4 minutes, which is interesting because in this chapter, they just give the hat to Hermione, and it's just Gryffindor, and we don't hear anything about like it taking a long time. But we do hear it took kind of a long time for Neville and like a couple others.
Right.
So, I don't know.
I wonder, what was McGonagall's other one? Just Ravenclaw?
Yeah, it was Ravenclaw.
And I suppose Pettigrew's was Hufflepuff.
Slytherin.
Oh yeah, Derp.
Yeah, apparently, like, from what I read,
I was just thinking, he's kind of useless.
Yeah, apparently the hat was pretty set on making him Slytherin, but he didn't want to be, and so he ended up getting his own choice. Like, he got his choice, and then the hat later on is like, I stand by the decision. Gryffindor was correct because he like redeemed himself in the end. It's like, no, he didn't. But I'm curious where this info came from because it sure as hell isn't in the book.
I mean, they mentioned that like the sorting hat. The wiki at least said the sorting hat is like kind of stubborn about it, and it could just be that it doesn't want to.
Yeah,
that it could be wrong. Pretty much.
Okay, so you have the thing about Harry spiraling.
Yeah, he's like, what if nothing happens and then they tell me I have to go home because I'm not really a wizard?
Yeah, Harry has a lot of like internal freaking out here. He's just like
imposter syndrome, basically.
It's like, what are we gonna have to do for the sorting ceremony? Because I don't know any magic yet. Are they gonna send me home? And then they see the hat, and he's like, oh, maybe I have to pull a rabbit out of the hat. And then they're like, but what if it doesn't pick a house? What if they're just like, oh, it was a mistake. You have to go home. It's like, calm down. But
that did lead me to wonder what would happen if the sorting hat was put on by a Muggle, if it would be able to sort them, because I assume so. Like, all those qualities are independent of having magic.
Right.
So.
Okay, so let me we're gonna play a game here of without try to not look at the document. Let's play. Are these characters going to show up again? So
okay.
I'll just read them out, and you can tell me. And if you think yes, then try to tell me what context they show up in. So first we have Hannah Abbott.
I don't think she does. Except elsewhere in this chapter.
Nope, she shows up in unimportant roles later. Her mom dies in like the 6th book, and apparently she marries Neville eventually.
Oh, okay.
Next is Susan Bones.
She does, I know that.
Yep, I don't think she ever does anything important, but she shows up.
Yeah.
Terry Boot.
No, I don't think so.
He's in Dumbledore's army. I don't think he ever does anything notable. Mandy Brocklehurst.
No.
Nope, never shows up.
Okay.
Millicent Bulstrode.
Yeah, obviously. She's actually pretty important in the 2nd book.
I don't know if she's important, but yeah, she's the one that Hermione... like,
enough for me to be like, to remember that she was mentioned, because, yeah, the Polyjuice Potion.
Yeah, she's the one that Hermione was going to turn into. Justin Finch-Fletchley.
Yeah. I remember him showing up in the 2nd book. This is extremely random, but I remember him talking to Harry. He had some kind of relevance immediately after the, like, Parseltongue incident happened, and I don't remember why.
Yeah, he was the one that...
Well, did he get petrified?
He does later. He's the one that when Harry, when Draco conjures the snake, the snake goes straight to Justin, and then Harry's like trying to call it off of him, and then everyone thinks that he's like trying to make it attack him. Yeah.
Right.
All right. So Seamus Finnegan.
That's because Justin's Muggle-born, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So Seamus Finnegan, we know he shows up. Obviously, here's Hermione. Then there is Neville. Morag MacDougal.
No.
Correct. She does not show up again, but here's an interesting one, because I did look all of these people up.
Okay.
So, apparently, depending on, like, what source you're looking at, there's a Morag, I don't know, Morag, I don't know how you pronounce it, and there's also an Isobel, spelled Siobel.
Yeah, that's an alternate spelling.
Which are arguably the same person, even though neither of them show up in the series. And I think there was like an alternate source where there's an Isobel MacDougal that is listed as being in Harry's year, even though she's never mentioned. And so it's like thought that it's this same character just with her name changed because Rowling forgot it. And then she apparently had like another name at one point that was like scratched out and then replaced with one of these. I don't know. They apparently could not decide on this character's name. So then
she doesn't even show up again.
Nope. So then we have Malfoy.
Yeah.
All right. So here we have just some last names with no first names attached. Starting with Moon.
I saw the note about this one already.
Okay. Yeah. So this is Lily Moon, who is known from, like, there was, I think, like a sheet of paper that Rowling had at one point with, like, a list of all the students in Harry's year, and, like, part of the name was unreadable, and then she said later on that it was Lily, but the name was only, like, it was written before she had even come up with the names of Harry's parents. So that's, like, the only, like, I don't know. And yeah, she was, like, a beta Luna Lovegood, apparently, was supposed to be... She was supposed to have, like, a role in the series as being kind of, like, the...
Oddball.
Yeah, like, the word fae was used. I don't remember exactly how it was described, but then she just kind of got written out. So then we have Not, N-O-T-T.
I saw the note about this one as well. There was a pun that was just, like... So I'm like, okay, I guess he doesn't show up either.
Yeah, so what I wrote for this one is Theodore Knott was not meant to be. He does actually show up, though.
What do you mean by not meant to be, though?
Because he never has any importance. He shows up, at least, in Order of the Phoenix, because he's one of the people who can see Thestrals. But apparently, he was originally meant to be a major character that Draco would actually see as an equal. And was like, had all this stuff planned for him, and all of it just got cut.
I see. Fair enough.
So Parkinson, I assume you know that one. Yeah, Pansy. So she shows up a few times. Then we have the two Patils. Sally Ann Perks.
And, shit, don't tell me. Parvati and Padma, I think.
Yep. So yeah, Sally Ann Perks.
I want to say yes.
Nope. Never mentioned again.
Not even once. Okay.
Never again. Then we get Harry. Then we have... Oh yeah, so here's the weird one. In the UK version, or at least the original one, it says, and now there were only 3 people left to be sorted. Turpin Lisa became a Ravenclaw, blah, blah, blah. The American version adds in a whole thing before that. Thomas, Dean, a black boy even taller than Ron, joined Harry at the Gryffindor table. Dean Thomas just wasn't in the original print. And then, to make things even better, in the original American print, they capitalized the B in black for some reason. And also it says, and now there were only 3 people left to be sorted, but then it lists 4 people because it didn't change the number. And then they corrected it to actually say 4. So I don't know what the hell happened there.
Just for the record, my copy, UK copy, yeah, it does say 3 people left to be sorted. Lisa Turpin, Ron Weasley, Blaise Zabini.
Yep, so it's weird because Dean Thomas, like, apparently was also supposed to have a bigger role in the series at some point, and it just got all cut. So I'm not sure...
But he commentates Quidditch. What higher honor could there be?
No, that's Lee Jordan.
Fuck! I'm racist now. I can't tell the black characters apart.
Oh my god. And Lee Jordan also had a tarantula in the last chapter. But, anyway, so yeah. Dean...
Oh, no, Dean's the fucking romantic rival for Ginny, isn't it?
Right.
For Ginny's affection. Okay, yeah, no, I was confused.
He is also good at drawing, apparently. I don't know why I remember this.
Okay.
So, anyway, then we have Lisa Turpin.
Yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and say, like, probably, like, one random mention.
Nope, never mentioned.
Damn it.
And then we get Ron, and then we get Blaze Zabini, who...
Yeah.
I assume you remember was never mentioned again until the 6th book, and most people assumed it was a girl.
I don't understand why. I guess just because the name looks like the word blouse. I can't think of any other reason.
So, that concludes our do these characters ever appear again?
I think I got like maybe 2 out of 12 or something.
Yeah.
I didn't count. Please don't count. It will make me sad.
Oh. But yeah, apparently there were supposed to originally be 40 people in Harry's year. Which would, if it was distributed evenly, that would be 5 boys and 5 girls for each of the houses. But I'm actually not sure what the number is of like the named
characters. I can't imagine it's got to be exactly even, right? Because
well, no, probably not. But like that would be on average how many.
Okay.
But yeah, we never see. There's allegedly a 4th and 5th Gryffindor girl that we never see in the entire series, and they never get named. Rowling has said that this is the case, but I don't know why they're just perpetually off screen. That's really weird. I don't know. Well, that was a hell of a thing.
Yeah.
So. You can continue.
Nitwit, lover, oddman, tweak.
Yeah.
Enough said. So, the Dursleys had never exactly starved Harry, but he'd never been allowed to eat as much as he liked.
Yeah, so I pointed that line out because I feel like it contradicts when they came back from the zoo, and Vernon's just like, in your cupboard, no meals. It's like...
Harry's probably downplaying it, I don't know. For whatever reason. Maybe it was a rare occurrence.
But getting back to the Dumbledore rambling, I like how Harry asks, is he mad? And Percy's just like, are you kidding? He's like the most brilliant wizard in the world. But yes, he's a bit mad. It's like, I kind of wonder how much of that is just him kind of putting on a show. I feel like he's probably doing that on purpose just to kind of be like, dare I say, whimsical.
I mean, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
He wants to seem like a fun guy to the student buddy.
He never approaches the level that he does in Methods of Rationality, where he forces Harry to carry James's giant boulder with him.
Excuse me.
Yeah, James apparently had a giant boulder that was like very important to him, and so Dumbledore was like, you have to keep this on you at all times. He's like, but this thing's huge. And so he transfigures it into like a diamond and wears it on a ring. And he eventually uses it to blow up a troll. But
oh, good.
Anyway,
bizarre.
So as they have their meal and stuff, they get to the desserts or puddings. The British version says jelly. The U.S. version just straight up says Jello, capital J, capital O with a hyphen.
I know it's a brand name, but it's basically Kleenexization, isn't it? Like,
I guess
that's what you guys call it.
They could have just called it like gelatin, though. It's just weird to use a brand name like that.
But it's not just gelatin; it's flavored gelatin, and that's no.
I mean, like if it was just spelled,
because gelatin is just weird, gummy stuff extracted from pigs, like.
Yeah. I guess I would call it Jello, but I would spell it uncapitalized and with no hyphen. I feel like spelling it that way is a brand name.
Yeah, fair enough.
It just seemed weird to me. So trifle and treacle tart. Do these count as Britishisms? I'm gonna say probably not.
They're just desserts that you can get here.
Because it's like if I'm gonna count peppermint humbugs I would probably want to count these, but we're getting again into the rice ball jelly donut thing. It's like they don't.
Yeah.
Why do we need to change this if it's actually a thing?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I'm gonna
I
say
would lean
they don't
towards even
count.
peppermint humbug shouldn't be counted, just because like you could probably hypothetically get them somewhere. Like
Yeah, maybe.
it's not it's a cultural thing more than like a language thing, you know. But anyway, so then we also get as Harry is just kind of looking around and eating, we get the start of these red herrings of Snape being up to no good. And funnily enough, I did not actually even notice these as a kid. So like, the point of this book is supposed to be that the point of this part of the story, I should say, is the reader's supposed to be like, this Snape guy looks pretty fishy. And then it's like, you're supposed to expect that he's the one that's after the Philosopher's Stone, and then it's like, oh, surprise, it was actually Quirrell. Go back and read, and you'll see all the foreshadowing. When I was a kid...
There's no foreshadowing, let's be honest.
There's a little bit of it, like...
It's the type of thing where you can go back and be like, oh, all these times that there was... that Harry's scar hurt, Quirrell was actually there. And it's like, yeah, but... like, in this...
Well, specifically the back of Quirrell's head was facing Harry, because... that guy was talking to Snape.
True. Well, actually, would it even be the back of his head? Like, if it would be like the side, I think. But either way, yeah, it's like, we have the scene, Snape locks eyes with Harry and is like staring daggers into his eyes, and Harry's scar hurts, which first time in the series this happens, I think.
Yeah. And
he's just like, oh, what was that? And then later on, it's just like, Snape must be evil, and it's like... I can definitely see how he made that connection because Snape's a dick. Well, but
the point I'm trying to make is that's the journey you're supposed to go on. Is you suspect Snape and then you go back and it turns out it's actually Quirrell.
Right.
But I watched the movie first as a kid, and so I not only did I not really have the capacity to like speculate, I don't think, but I also just kind of like the movie is faster, so you.
Right.
I wouldn't really have had time to think, and it just gets revealed. So I don't know how
like you don't have the pause where it's just like, who do you think is behind the heist? Is it A, Severus Snape, B, the 1986 Denver Broncos?
But yeah, so like when I was watching it and then later reading the book, even all of this stuff kind of came out of nowhere for me. But now reading it, it's like super obvious that it's supposed to be like, something's up with Snape. I just didn't notice as a kid, and I find that very funny because I had no memory of it. But,
yeah. So we'll keep an eye out for all those instances and just kind of see where Quirrell shows up. There's a bit that everybody likes to point out about Fred and George throwing snowballs at the Turpin, which is pretty good. But okay, so here we have. Dumbledore looking at Fred and George from across the room. So Dumbledore's, giving his, rules before they go to bed, and he's just like, oh, by the way, the third floor corridor on the right-hand side is off limits to anybody who doesn't want to die a horrible death. I feel like, A, rope the thing off.
I mean, the door's already locked, right? The first door to that whole thing.
Yeah, okay, so, here's the thing, though, I imagine Fluffy as just being in a room.
Yeah.
So, the corridor is what's leading to the room.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not supposed to go in the corridor at all.
No, they can go in the corridor.
No, because it says the third floor corridor on the right-hand side is off limits.
Yeah, the third floor corridor, the right-hand side is off limits. Is that not what it means? The third floor corridor, the part on the right-hand side. No?
I figure, either way, it's vague. I feel like, this castle is gigantic, and apparently, it's been on, stated on record that it's impossible to, actually make a map of this, despite the fact that the Marauders map exists. She won't release a map of this because the contents of the way the rooms are laid out are constantly changing or some shit. I don't know. She probably just didn't want to make a map. But,
hire someone else to do it. Goddamn.
Anyway. But yeah, it's is there only one third floor corridor? I don't know. Point is, put up...
Well, I guess if it's your interpretation, I am kind of seeing it. It could be like, once you're on the 3rd floor, you can either go to the right-hand side or the left-hand side. There's 2 corridors. You can go to the corridor on the left. Like, maybe that's what they mean.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like, without knowing the floor plan, like, I imagine, this castle is fucking huge. There's gotta be... I'm expecting, like, at least a full rectangle of hallways that connect up to each other with probably, like, interconnecting ones. Which is the bad one? Fucking rope the thing off. Like, anyway. So yeah, then we get to
could it not be presumed that it's roped off and they just ignored it? Or maybe there's like a sign or something?
Maybe.
It's just not mentioned.
There's a part where they're like running away from Filch and they just kind of end up in there, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. Fair. Okay.
So anyway, yeah, the school song, it's awful.
It's terrible, and also fucking Dumbledore is like, sing this to any tune that you want, and then most people are just doing something of more or less the same speed, but then Fred and George are doing like a slow funeral march that lasts way longer than the actual song.
Which they're just like, doing that to fuck with everybody.
Yeah, of course. But I like that Dumbledore sees no problem with this. He'll happily conduct their funeral march as well. And just I try to imagine. I'm trying to imagine, like, what would
this crowd of hundreds of students just saying shit at different speeds at different tunes. It's just a cacophony. Like, and the first thing I'm thinking here is like, okay, if I wanted to be stupid about this, like, you kind of like, I can't help but think of the tune that they give it in the movie, like, because it's not in the first movie, but there's a deleted scene in the 4th one. I think, where it's like,
right,
Hogwarts, 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 teach us something, please. But yeah, it's like, if I want to be a troll, can I like Megalovania this? Like,
Hogwarts,
Hogwarts, teach us something, please, whether we be... It's like, it doesn't quite work.
Yeah.
But yeah, the school song sucks. I don't know if I'm again debating if this should be counted as whimsy, but I
think the fact that he's like, and now we will do the annual cacophony, like that.
And I think I like the part also where it says like the teachers put on forced smiles, like nobody enjoys this except for Dumbledore. Like he's just having a laugh. So
I know that obviously the answer is obvious here, but I love the idea of like fucking the like evil Hogwarts in book 7 still doing this shit. Obviously it doesn't. But...
Oh my god. So yeah, I think we can probably count that one as whimsy. Debatable, but we'll go with that. And I also just like Dumbledore's like wiping tears from his eyes, like, oh, music, it's a magic far beyond what we do here. It's like, man, what are you talking
about? But yeah, so then we get Peeves as they're heading up to go to their dorm rooms for the first time.
So you have a thing here about Peeves. Let me first say, like, he shows up carrying a bunch of walking sticks, and he's just like, ooh, Ickle thirsties, and then just does nothing. He like does nothing of note, like drops the walking sticks on Neville and then fucks off. Like, so Peeves is not in the movies, and people have said like this is a great injustice.
Wasn't there like an actor who was supposed to play Peeves, and then they cut him from the movie, and he's like hated the franchise ever since?
I've heard at least the first part of that. I don't know if he hates the franchise. I also don't remember who it was.
I've heard that he's like really bitter about it, or at least used to be.
But Peeves is worthless. He has like I think he has like 2 or maybe 3 good moments in the series. He like I never got his deal. So like in this chapter they say like he's not even a real ghost, and
yeah, he's just a manifestation of like the mischief of the students or something.
Yeah.
The rebellious teen spirit.
It happened one fateful morning.
God damn it.
But it's twice now I've made that reference. People are going to wonder what the fuck I'm in. But
true fans will understand.
Yes. Yeah, he's just kind of there. But So
There are some interesting moments with him throughout the series. I can't remember any in particular, but I do remember him showing up and kind of giving interesting information exposition sometimes. It's always, I don't know, Peeves is always like a, for me, pretty welcome moment of levity most of the time, even if he's kind of obnoxious. Like, if something serious is going on, like, Peeves will fucking lighten the mood, I don't know.
yeah.
There's also, like he kind of gets a payoff in Order of the Phoenix when he helps out Fred and George with like their escape.
Yeah.
And then I believe he was in the Battle of Hogwarts, at least doing something, right?
I remember him singing a shitty song after it was over, where he says, "Now Voldy's gone moldy, so let's all have fun." And then Ron says, like, "That song really captures the direness of the situation, doesn't it?" But yeah, like I said, he has a couple moments, but he could very easily be taken out of the series, and very little would be lost.
Similar to the like weird fixation on the Sweet from the trolley earlier, the games also use Peeves a lot in the early installments. Like they very frequently include him as some kind of recurring mini boss or like a hazard or something. I remember in Chamber of Secrets when I was a kid, I would always get jump scared by, there were certain chests that just wouldn't have normal collectibles in them. Instead, Peeves would just pop out and scare you, and it always fucking got me.
Indeed. So you wrote a thing about the Bloody Baron here.
Yeah, they mentioned that like Bloody Baron's the only one that Peeves like respects, or the only one that can tell Peeves what to do. It probably is just because the Bloody Baron is scary, but I do wonder if there's anything more to that. Because I mean, it's not like Peeves has a personal history. He's just a weird thing that's tied to Hogwarts and is not a real person. But
probably when you wrote this, I was wondering if you were like implying that there was some kind of notable backstory with them.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I could look up the Bloody Baron and Peeves on the wiki. I might actually do that after this.
So I actually forgot to point this one out earlier. So like when they're eating dinner and talking to Nearly Headless Nick, or Sir Nicholas D. Mimsy Porpington, he like points out the Baron. Oh yeah, also we got to mention the Fat Friar. He's mentioned a couple times in this chapter, and I think he shows up 2 more times in the whole series. He is
good,
entirely forgettable. But so yeah, they point out the Baron, and somebody's like, "How did he get covered in blood?" And then Nick says,
"I don't know."
He's like, "I've never asked," and he says it delicately. I always thought, like, I first read that as like as a kid at least, I read that as just like, it's funny because they're hundreds of years old and he never thought to ask this. Now I read it as like he knows but just doesn't want to actually like share the info because the kids don't need to know.
Oh no, I still figure it's just because he's like, oh, I don't want to hear that story. It's probably
because we do get a Bloody Baron backstory. Do you remember it?
I actually don't.
It's in the 7th book.
I figured.
Yeah, it's dealing with the Ravenclaw ghost, but
that's ringing some bells, but I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, we won't worry about it for now.
Okay.
So, yeah, we're getting at the end here. I wrote down I can't talk. Is it Caput? I wasn't sure if it was Caput.
I think it's Caput. No?
Caput Draconis was the Gryffindor password.
Does that mean like End of Dragons or something?
Head of Dragon, apparently. And it's... Yeah. I looked it up. It's like there's apparently some meaning of it like being like the beginning of a journey or something, so there's like some relevance there. But I think it's also just like part of a constellation, maybe. I don't remember it.
All right.
Whatever. I looked up a thing and I forgot what it meant, so that was a good minute spent.
Okay. And finally, we get I believe this is the first instance of like a Voldemort-induced nightmare, which I seem to recall being something that happens a lot.
Or just meaningful dreams in general.
Yeah, and I wonder if we should have a counter for this.
I see no reason why not.
I can't remember if he had any nightmares at the Dursleys, but it should be pretty easy to go check.
I don't think he did. I'm pretty sure the only mention is like, I had a dream about a flying motorcycle.
Yeah. So we can check that.
Yeah. But yeah, we get meaningful dreams later on. This one is just like, he sees... Okay, let me actually just read it again. So he's wearing Professor Quirrell's turban, which kept talking to him, saying he had to transfer to Slytherin because it was his destiny. And then, like, Malfoy was laughing at him as the turban was getting bigger, and then Malfoy turned into Snape, and then Snape apparently, like, became Voldemort or something.
Yeah, so there's some weirdness with this, because, like, it's obviously just most of the things that Harry has been, like, concerned about in the wizarding world kind of combining into one, like, scary experience in this dream. But also the whole thing with, like, oh, you must, like, Quirrell's turban being involved as he's like, oh, you gotta go back to Slytherin, like,
that is, the fact that the turban showed up, or even Quirrell at all, like, that's definitely kind of, like, forced foreshadowing, because Harry has no reason to suspect him of, like, being anything sinister yet. But,
well, what I mean is, like, so obviously this is the result of some of his connection with Voldemort, but I doubt that Voldemort is specifically going out of his way to be like, yes, and then you will imagine Malfoy turning into Snape.
I mean, I don't think this was necessarily, like, you know, like a sinister, magically induced dream. I figured it was just a nightmare.
I don't know. I've always figured that, like, because this may sound stupid because we're literally in a magical world here, but I always figured that, like, it kind of bothers me in stories when a character will have some kind of prophetic dream and then it's not actually explained as being anything specifically. I'm just like, okay, why did you have a dream like that, though? Like, that doesn't happen in real life. People don't regularly have dreams that are actually predictive of the future. Like, that's bullshit. So,
unless you're Stephanie Meyer.
You'll have to tell me about that later. But I'm just like, to me, I'm like, well, this has got to be Voldemort, right? Because what else would have caused him to have a dream about Quirrell's turban having a sinister association and about him needing to go to Slytherin, unless it's just like, because obviously, like, it's mentioned that he has some kind of magical blood property that lets him do Parseltongue, and obviously he was almost forced into Slytherin, and there's all that kind of stuff.
Speaking of which, people
have
realizing
this on a subconscious level, or
people have mentioned before that, like, there might be like, the Sorting Hat might only be trying to put him in Slytherin because it's picking up on Voldemort's soul. I'd say that's definitely, like, feasible.
Possible?
I don't know if I don't know if I would say it's, like, the only likely reason, but I think really it just is, you know, like, Harry has ambition and he could go there, but he chooses not to because he doesn't want to be in the house that he thinks is evil, and so it's like, okay, well,
is the Parseltongue from Voldemort's soul? I can't actually remember.
It is.
Okay. Does that mean he stops being able to use Parseltongue after he dies?
Yep. That is actually said. But
okay.
But yeah, it's like the whole idea is just like he's choosing good over evil, or what he perceives as good over what he perceives as evil, and so the Hat's like, okay, you go to Gryffindor. But yeah, I don't know. As for this dream being, like, magically induced or not, I don't know.
I guess it's up to interpretation. Let us know what you think in the comments.
Indeed. So
speaking of comments,
yeah, that's gonna wrap us up here. Other than if you wanted to go over any comments.
So Cheese, the clueless Uke, mentioned that that he interpreted the money thing as being a reference to, like, old UK money with, like, 12 pence to a shilling, 20 shillings to a pound. Apparently, rolling would have been around 6 when the shift over to decimalization happened. So that is definitely plausible. I forgot about that. Like, I know about shillings, obviously, because I'm here and it's, like, part of our history, but I always thought that was abolished in, like, the 50s or something. Apparently it was 1971. So, yeah. that's definitely possible.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that, though.
There is one thing here that is in Martin's comment. Says, isn't it established that Voldemort had a spell attached to his name and people would be murdered for saying it? The thing with that is, in the 7th book, there's a point where that happens. They call it the taboo, where if you say his name, then basically he can detect where you are, and then Death Eaters basically show up. And
but that's something that I'm pretty sure he's only able to set up once he takes over the Ministry, probably because he uses their, like, nationwide tracking resources.
It's never specifically said if he used it in, like, the First War or whatever, but I always got the feeling that it was only the second time because like nobody knew about it beforehand. Like they were saying his name and Death Eaters were showing up and they didn't know why. And then after Ron leaves the group and comes back later, he's like, "Oh yeah, there's the taboo. It's like this is a thing now." And you'd think that if anybody, like at least Hermione from reading everything in the world and Ron from being from a wizarding family, one of them would have said like, "Yeah, he did this the first time too."
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah, I imagine so. So it's probably just, memory getting mixed up on that, I guess.
right.
So yeah, I think I can't
There's
really think of it.
there's other comments, but just in terms of other things that are really worth bringing up, a lot of just different people having different grade scales when they're in school.
Yeah.
I always thought that was more of a set in stone thing, but apparently not.
Yeah, fair enough.
Sorry. These looking back at the comment sections are always awkward because it's like there was plenty of comments. It's just hard to really say much about most of
Yeah,
them.
we can't respond to all of them,
Yeah.
and a lot of them are just like kind of generic but appreciated support. And
Indeed.
it's like,
Yep. So anyway,
Probably most responsible.
we've gone over 2 hours here talking about probably 40 pages, so we should be done. And I guess we're doing 2 chapters again next time because the next one is the Potions
9
Master,
pages.
which is extremely short. And then we
Following
have
that is the Midnight Duel.
Midnight Duel, which mostly focuses on broomsticks and not a duel.
yep.
So,
So yeah,
Benjamin.
Disraeli.